Okay,
because
all
we have
right. Now, now just a minute. Professor Asha Hans is a feminist. She is also an activist and she has worked a lot on disabilities. She is also the director of DRI. DRI is a research organization. On her own right, I mean, she has really worked a lot on disabilities and all that. So I will invite her to speak. She will speak how the women-headed household, you know, tackled COVID and and uh, how they're affected in climate change. I mean, I can go on. She has many publications. She is an international repute scholar. But more important is, let us hear her own ideas. I really admire Asan. She is my leader. Asha Hans, Professor Asha Hans.
Thank you, Bidyut. And hello, everyone. I'm so happy to join you today. And there were some very extraordinary papers today that I heard. So I'm feeling a little bit nervous that most probably what I'm going to say is not as great as the one that came before. But
How do you know?
for the last 5 years, this has been part of a project that I have been doing on an inter-university consortium on climate change through a number of universities across the globe. The one that I was involved in was on deltas and the impact that it has on climate change. And the area that we selected was on the east coast of India, which is really the gateway to Southeast Asia also. It has been very impacted by climate change, and there has been a lot of coastal erosion because of the rising of the seas. So it's not only islands, but it's also the coastline of India which is eroding. In the area that we worked, about at least 7 villages have been completely wiped out. They're not left at all. The sea has entered, and in other places, much more is increasing. And as usual, as we found in other areas, women are very impacted. And here also, women were impacted by this climate change because it led to complete displacement. People had to move out because their lands were no longer there. The sea had ingressed and they had to go out. But they went to places nearby. It was either autonomous, and in some cases, the government had also removed them to safer places. Now, most of them, therefore, had no livelihood because they had lost their land. And so, a number of them, about 50% of the population, migrated. Now, the study that we did covered about 1,500 households, of which about 50% had migrated to all over India and another 50% who had stayed back. Now, those who stayed back, a number of them, of people who had migrated and who stayed back, we looked also at women-headed household and how it impacted them. We found that where remittances were coming in those households, naturally it was obvious that they were not going to be affected as much as those who were not. But there were other parameters also to be looked at. For example, among the 869 women household that we looked at, about 114 were widows. Usually women who are widows are very vulnerable. They were vulnerable here also. But there were other parameters, I said, which also affected them. And that was that where widows had their smaller number of families to take care of. So in that case, in some cases where women who didn't have migrant in their household, they were even worse off than the widows. So there were three levels of women whom we looked at, and most of them, where gender is concerned, uh, there was extremely high risk of food insecurity. Many of them had only one meal a day. When we look at COVID, we say that people have only one meal a day, there's food insecurity. But even in those areas which were affected by climate change, a lot of women-headed households did not have food security. There was also high pressure of work, because if men were out, they had to not only take care of the older people and children, but also some of them went out to work in the fields. So they had that triple kind of
Tripathy.
impact that was there on, and the pressure that was there. Now, 70% of them also did not get any help from the government or from any NGOs. So, it was a kind of, unless they were relocated by the government, it was basically, you could say that there was destitution among those women. Now, where these women were concerned, the risk faced by the household, such as inaccessibility to resources, to health services, because no access to resources mean no access to health services, food, sanitation. It was part of that product of the discriminatory social norms and poverty that these women are affected with. But it is not that that men were not affected. When men were also who migrated, their health was affected. They had a lot of other social issues also, but women were more affected. And we observed also a reversion of gender roles, as women have taken up male-oriented activities. A lot of the activities, as I said, that they had to work. If they had a little land they had bought, they would have to work on those. They also had to, when there were wells that were dug by the men also who had stayed behind, a lot of them found that the wells had dried up. So they went and dug another well, they went and dug another third one. So what happened was that most of the women had to sell their gold. So, they also lost all the other assets that they had, personal assets also. Where the adaptation was concerned, there was very little adaptation. So the only issue that was left, the only alternative that was left to them was migration. And the policies that were there by the government, the policies also showed that the government of both Odisha and India had very little to offer women. In the case of Odisha, the state with the Mahanadi Delta that I'm working on, there was some impact of keeping women in the policy. We had a role to play when the consultations were held, but where adaptation was concerned, there was still very little to offer. In the government of India's National Action Plan, there was nothing for women. At all. Even in other issues, for example, like they had policies on water, which is of very great concern to women. Even there was no, we rarely found any place where women could be fitted in. So the study could establish that both women and widow-headed households are more vulnerable to climate change impact in the Delta, and that there was no support from anyone, neither the government nor from the NGOs, and more so in the socio-economic aspects, doing also because they had a very low literacy level. Those who are from Odisha will also know that the eastern coast of Odisha has also very some kind of patriarchal norms that they follow, where in a high income bracket women would not work in the fields, but these women, as they came from, even though they came from a middle class, had to come down to work. So there was also a social disparity that could be seen. There was also, in spite of the high vulnerability that was there, taking on male roles also had a social impact upon how society viewed them, that they were not considered as women as other women were concerned, but as laborers who did not have a role to play within the social structures and cultural parameters that were there. So in this way, climate change is having a great impact, and it is not only impacting us, but also all those countries who today we are talking about in NAM. And I think it is time that we started to do much more research, and also change of policy is very needed. Though if you look at the policies, most of the policies across the globe talk more about funding, talk a lot about mitigation. That means carbon monoxide should be reduced, but very little talk about women and how much those who are affected by it, the people who are affected by it. I think it is time that we looked at it. I hope that I could contribute to some of your the dialogue that you are having today, and I will be open to any question that you would have. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too much time.
So, so let us request Swarnamayee Tripathy. Swarnamayee Tripathy is a professor in public administration. She teaches in a very famous university of Odisha. And she will speak on women in grassroots politics and how they've tackled the COVID situation. Professor Swarnamayee.
Yes, thank you, madam.
Please.
So, good afternoon, dear friends. Hello.
Yes. Carry on.
Actually, whenever we talk about women as peace messengers or women as part of peace operations, we view them as marginals, not playing a very important role in peacekeeping operations or peace negotiations or conflict resolution processes. The broad findings of researchers are that women in peace operations experience several barriers, and the mission leaders consider them as women, not as professionals. So their women experience discrimination and not given a chance to negotiate. In contrast to this, I would say that this is the contradictions in the paradox relating to women as messengers. Those who do research on women in local governance in different countries, and particularly in South Asia, they conclude that women leaders remain disengaged and silent. Patriarchy creates multiple socio-cultural barriers for them, and politics remain aligned to women, and women are considered as a spent force so far as governance is concerned. And also, when most of the studies, they say that women are most affected in a conflict situation. For example, in a communal riot, women experience much violence, considering them as symbols of the symbols of prestige of a particular community.
Right.
Now, I would not enter into all these discourses. I have taken up a very different interpretation of the things. The alternative paradigm, I can say that though the number is very, you may consider it few, but women are strong and brave peacemakers. This we can make out if we analyze the women leaders in panchayats in India. Let me explain a little about these panchayats in India. Bidyut has done a lot of studies on these panchayats in India. Women in these panchayats are not that educated. They are most of them are illiterates or they have little education. They every day in their life they have to negotiate with the patriarchal forces in rural India, and rural India opens up. Rural India has opened up many opportunities for them in a post 1990 scenario. That means towards the end of 20th century, Indian state came out with a very, very revolutionary constitutional amendment by which women at the grassroots level were allowed to acquire public space in large numbers. And today you can say that their number is something around 13.45 lakhs. In most of the Indian states, in the local bodies, that is the panchayats, these panchayats are indigenous institutions of India. Even before independence, they were existing. But after independence, they have taken a new shape. And in the 21st century, it shows many possibilities. So women's role in India is very much informed by the views of the father of nation, that is Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhiji's idea about women and their role in public life was a departure from those of the 19th century reformers in India. He saw women as a potential force in the struggle to build a new social order. Women are stronger than men as they are conscious of their purity and chastity. Therefore, women is self-reliant. Women are symbols of robust independence. And by taking up these ideas of women, by being influenced by Gandhiji's ideas, I would like to put forth my views on women PRI leaders in India. How have I examined them? Basically, my field analysis is based on the first-hand informations from the state to which I belong, that is Odisha, is an Eastern Indian state, and the other stories that come to us through media reports from other states of India. Now you see, when I started examining the new role of women during pandemic, how did they behave during pandemic? Because if we consider pandemic as a social crisis, more than a health crisis, then in such a situation, you will find that women during a crisis in a family, how do they behave? And if we extend this role of women as the leader of the household, we will be able to understand this. So here what we find is that when the government of our state extended very specific powers to women to handle the pandemic, these women, how did they behave? Our ground level and the field study reports give us that women worked for the respective villages designed and the plan to contain the pandemic, providing local solutions with the help of key personalities in the local area in the given socio-cultural context. This is by using my knowledge of public administration, I say that the women, they have adopted an ecological approach to development where they are trying to provide solutions to the social crisis. They have taken the local environment into account, and accordingly they have adopted, they have framed their strategies, and they have worked out their plans during the pandemic. So it is a true picture of participatory governance. They did not allow the local environment to go against them. They had discussion with the key personalities of the community, and accordingly they framed the strategy to contain COVID-19 in their panchayats. Second thing that I noticed is that they wanted to act as a missing link between the health workers and the community. Now the community members, they recognize the women leader. So when the health workers, the frontline health workers, were given the charge of identifying the COVID patients and spreading the social awareness regarding social distancing, these women leaders accompanied the health workers, moved from door to door, and tried to convince the members in the village or in the panchayat regarding the seriousness of the pandemic, regarding the SOP guidelines issued by the government, also regarding the health crisis and their role to face the health crisis. Third thing I would point out that how these women try to protect the livelihood opportunities of the migrant workers, of the poorest and poor in the village through their through their role as an agent of the government. Now, many women leaders, all these studies are based on case studies. Many women leaders, let me tell you here that the Indian state has a public policy which ensures a right to work, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Now, the women leaders use this public scheme, expanded the scope of this public scheme in consultation with the government officials, engaged the returnee migrants in this NG and RAG work, and tried to ensure livelihood opportunities to the largest extent. Next point that I would like to make is that these women leaders, they monitored the process of sanitization of the entire village. They had a strict vigil on laborers returning back to the village, sent them to the medical centers for checkup as per guidelines issued by the block authorities. They also, for imposing strict surveillance, they gave responsibilities to various panchayat members. The sarpanchas, the main leader, gave responsibilities to other ward members and key people of the village to safeguard the entry and exit points by forming checkposts. They involved women in this activity, the members of self-help groups in different villages during the daytime, and also the men of the villages during the night hours. Next point I would like to make, how did they wanted to establish a peaceful environment within the village, in the panchayat. The next point is they wanted to ensure food security. No one in the village should go hungry. That was their lookout. For that, they adopted policy in some panchayats. They adopted policies like door-to-door distribution of ICDS ration, the Integrated Child Development Scheme ration for small children and pregnant women. They ensure the benefits given by the government schemes to the villagers. They also try to ensure the how the public goods are available to every villager during this social crisis. Here I would like to point out a very, very pertinent point. That is the agency and engagement of women by utilizing their innovative skills. This is one poster I would like to show. Here it is written in Hindi. It is written the one of the chairpersons of the district council. Here the lady named Uma Devi has issued this poster where she has given the slogan, Corona will be defeated, the country will, Corona will be defeated, the country will win the war. Now they are as if Corona, COVID-19 is a war-like situation. If we follow the SOP guidelines properly, then we can defeat Corona. So these are not small issues. Due to paucity of time, I'm not able to present the case studies, but these are not the issues that we can just overlook. These are the best practices, you can say. These are some of the case studies where you can say women, if given chance, can prove as better leaders, better peace messengers, in spite of the contradictions, the conflicts in rural politics. So this is my submission to the learned gathering. Thank you very much. I would welcome if there are questions, because I have not been able to explain it properly, because the time is in my mind that I should limit myself to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Swarna.
Yes.
Thank you. And Asha. Now I will invite Professor Seema Parihar and Madhavi Jupaka.
Yes, ma'am. Namaskar, ma'am.
Yes, Seema.
Seema, ma'am, I think she is not available, but I'll be taking up the presentation because it's a joint presentation. So may I, ma'am, take it forward?
Sure. Are you Madhavi?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to inform all that Bidyut ma'am has been my role model.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was working with the Government of India and Ministry of Women and Child Development, streamlining women issues by following her footsteps. So it's an honor for me to share the dais with her, under her chairpersonship. So I would like to, ma'am, with your permission, take the session forward.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. So quickly, I would also like to share a presentation, ma'am. So
okay.
My article is basically Ma'am, should I share the presentation first?
Please do that.
Okay. So basically, my article is today my paper which I'm going to speak is on a very interesting aspect. It's about addressing
I'm
violence.
sorry, but I don't think we can see your PowerPoint. It's not there. It's still blank.
I can't see also, but
Yeah.
she has the problems. But let her speak. Allow her to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Madhavi, you just tell your main arguments.
Yes, ma'am.
Madhavi,
Yes, ma'am.
don't try to show your.
Okay.
It's not coming.
Okay, fine, ma'am. I'll just move forward. Basically,
Yeah.
I would like to speak about addressing violence against women and children post abrogation of Article 317 Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
So there is a constitutional provision which was amended in the past year, which had given a lot of empowerment to women and children in Jammu and Kashmir. And I'm just focusing on how the aspect of violence against women was addressed before and after the change of the Article 370. So before that, I would just like to say what is this Article 370 all about in Jammu and Kashmir, because not everybody is very clear what exactly this article is.
Right.
Interestingly, this article is about all about women empowerment. Now, first time there has been a change which has got full focus on the empowerment of women in a place like Jammu and Kashmir, which is a geographically challenged area and also climatically challenged. The average altitude of Jammu and Kashmir is 1,860 meters, and it's a very heavy terrain area. And the life of women and children is very difficult because half of the year the entire state is under snowfall. The roads are cut off. There's a lot of climatically challenged. Sometimes the temperature goes to minus, and how they are kind of facing the problems in that kind of situation. Violence with women and children was very much prevalent before. Because before, I mean, when I say before, I'm talking about Article 370. I'll just quickly state what Article 370 is all about. Article 370 initially, that was much before independence of India. It said that that the women could not marry outside Jammu Kashmir, and if she does, then she will not get the property. She will have no right on the property. I'm just summarizing the entire article because otherwise, if I read the article, the language will be complicated. But the gist is, women before the removal of Article 370 could not marry anybody outside Jammu Kashmir, and she could not have access to property rights in case she marries someone outside. So that means her basic human right was denied, being a woman, right? And apart from that, other constitution, other laws of India which were for women, like anti-female feticide or prevention of child marriage, they were not applicable to her. So this article was very important in terms of its removal, because the moment it was removed, the women in Jammu and Kashmir got more empowered in terms of not only claiming their rights, their basic human rights, but also leveraging what are their rights and privileges. So in that background, I would quickly like to say what are the basic problems of challenges of women and children in Jammu and Kashmir. The fact is that they never got equal participation and representation at any level so far. One, because of the geographical area. Secondly, because they've always been kept at the background in terms of anything. Their laws were denied, the property rights were denied, so they were always marginalized. Secondly, they also could not remove the discriminatory practices they had. So when it came to empowerment, they were never at an equal footing with men. Okay, and there was a lot of violence because in that setting, they could not even speak about what was happening, especially when I would say violence, I'm talking about domestic violence and mental and emotional violence. And secondly, the work-family balance was never achieved. With children, the issues were different because most of the time, because of the geographic situation and the situation of violence in the area, they could not go to school. They could not get basic things like food, milk, because milk is something which is a daily commodity. The markets are closed. How will they get milk? So they could not attend school. Then this had a lot of psychological stress on the children. And also the safety concern. Suppose if a child, because usually children do fall sick, especially in a cold climate like Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, they fall sick. And to go to doctor for any kind of ailment was difficult because how would they go climatically? There was one situation, and sometimes in lockdown situations also. So this created a lot of psychological pressure on children also. So now with this background, when the Article 370 got abolished, suddenly women and children could get a lot of, I would say, access to their rights. And interestingly, the most beautiful thing about Jammu and Kashmir is that despite the fact that there were these challenges, one of the best examples of the good practice about Jammu and Kashmir is that whatever schemes and programs which are there for the empowerment of children and women, they were being actually led. I mean, they were being kind of implemented by the officers over there. So all the government officers who are in charge of the programs of women and children were the ones who were actually taking these schemes forward prior to 370. But after 370, now they are able to do it with more force, and they could go out more to reach out to women, because now they can tell women that yes, you can access your rights, you have the privileges, now you are at par with the rest of the country. Now when this happened, what are the kind of major programs which actually gave women that push of empowerment after 370 removal? One was, we had the one stop center scheme. It is a kind of a building which has got 5 facilities, that is police, medical, psychological counseling, legal counseling, and temporary shelter. So these 5 things under one roof are available for women in the entire Jammu and Kashmir region. Then you have women helplines. Then you have a force of employees who will go village to village creating awareness about their rights. Then you also have the child protection units. They are a set of units, a team of people who would, whenever there's any incident of violence or any kind of requirement, they would go to the house where the child needs any help, and they will give the help to the child. Secondly, the shelter homes, wherever if a woman is kind of needing shelter for her children in case of natural calamity, or even if she has been evicted because of violence, the homes are there where women can go. So these are the kind of interventions which are there. And after 370, it became, the officers got more power to execute these programs after 370 article abrogation. One very interesting thing which came out in Jammu and Kashmir was that because of this domestic violence happening, a lot of female feticide, the infanticide matter also was there. But because it is an area which is a lot of under hilly terrain, the Jammu area, one area which is the valley area where you have big hospitals, in the plain area, the entire women from the Jammu and Kashmir used to come to that particular hospital to get female infanticide done. So they used to have a kind of a system where they would undertake female infanticide with code language because it is illegal. You cannot have female infanticide in the country. So the system was like that they would have it code language for getting the female infanticide done or getting to know whether it is a male child or a female child or a fetus. So in that case, what happened was the interesting innovation which came was that the district administration in the district, that means the government officers, they created, they put a mobile number saying that anybody who sees any kind of code languages being, undertaken in the hospital should immediately inform this particular mobile number.
Right.
So when this happened, and there were decoy people, like people, the police officers would dress up like ordinary women and just go and, as if they are trying to take their health checkup. So they would come to know that what is the code language also. So this way they were able to control the aspect of this female feticide. So such kind of very innovative interventions came. And with such one-stop center, women got a lot of confidence that yes, we do have facilities which kind of are there for women and children. So this has given them a lot of impact because suddenly in all the areas of Jammu and Kashmir, all the officers were working together as teams to inform them door to door that yes, we have a full team for you to get all your rights, all your legal rights, your protection, against violence and your care. We are there for you. So this kind of message immediately went after 370. Incidentally, I was also a part of that team, and I was there recently when I was working with the government. I had taken up a mission mode program to make sure that within 4 weeks, we will cover all the areas, whether it is on the hilly terrain or on the plains. We will just drive around. We drove around 2,000 kilometers non-stop to inform everybody that yes, we all are there for you. So this kind of message of an army of all the officers, who just went on a drive campaign to tell that we are there for you, created a lot of confidence and a lot of, I would say, kind of impact on the field, because it created a message. Now in Jammu and Kashmir, women are usually empowered, they are very literate. Even though if they are working in rural areas, despite climate hostile conditions, they have been surviving in terms of doing their agriculture work or their handicrafts, or kind of having their apple orchards. So they are a very cash crop economy. They are very rich and they're very empowered. So even though they are geographically challenged, the way they have managed themselves is that they're very literate. They're very conscious about the events in the news, and the fact that when this campaign was there, everybody knew, all the women were aware, whether it is rural or whether it is urban, that they do have facilities for them where they can just walk in and get access to justice, to information, to their rights, to the care, and also for any kind of support they need for the government, whether it is their property or their legal rights or the constitution. So all this was suddenly there, and the reason that Jammu and Kashmir is suddenly into the mainstream economy with respect to women empowerment is that because a lot of teamwork had happened with all the officers who were on the field, who were ready to embrace and communicate that women in Jammu and Kashmir can combat violence from wherever they are, whether it is 3,000 feet above the sea level or whether they are inaccessible, we are all there. So this is basically it is. In fact, I was just wanting to show a small video, but I think there is some issue with the I would say, I think the video. Otherwise, I would wanted to show how the the advocacy for women empowerment was even happening during the snowfall. So that was very touching because there's a lot of I would say consciousness, especially among the men over there, because most of the advocacy is done by men. So that is a very good message in terms which goes into the society, that the gender equality aspect and extending services to women in need, especially addressing violence, is there for all of it. So this is my presentation, ma'am, and if there are any questions, I am ready to answer them.
Thank you, Madhavi.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it is Jammu and Kashmir is a conflict-ridden area. Lot of fundamental changes have taken place recently. It is from a state, it has become union territory.
Yes, yes.
Now, Diah, there are 3 presentations. Diah, come back.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I think I don't
can't
see
see
Seema
you.
here. Yeah, should be Seema
I
now.
can't see you.
Hello, Bidyut?
Yeah,
I'm here.
but I can't see you. Yeah, okay. So there are 3 speakers.
Yes.
And Seema somehow is absconding in Calcutta.
Okay.
So all 3 speakers have spoken. All of them are from India. So if
Yes.
you have any questions, comments.
There is questions. I think it's from Usha Chandran to Dr. Madhavi.
Yeah, yes, yes.
in chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to respond to it. May I, ma'am, with your permission?
Yes, yes.
Okay, there is a question which talks that why these interventions and innovations were not existing before Article 370, and did the article obstructed? Yes, actually, yes. I would like to just read, I would want to get into the fine print of the Article 370, which in fact I had written a newspaper article on the 9th of August in all the leading newspapers. I would request if you could just read the fine print, you would exactly know which are the clauses which very clearly stated that women would not get the same access to justice, which are there in terms of their rights in the rest of the country. Okay, so this is very clearly there. That, it's like big kind of. I'm talking about big legislations such as prevention of child marriage, or domestic violence. They could not even get access to those rights. So definitely, 370 article is a landmark article for women empowerment. They could not have access to justice before with respect to the laws of which the big laws which the Ministry of Women and Child had before, including sex selection. So you can understand the nature of situation before abrogation of 370. So this is the fact that yes, after 370, the women could get access to justice, which was not there before. Therefore, when we talk about innovative interventions, we were able to do so because under Article 370, when Jammu and Kashmir became Union Territory, it came into the mainstream of access to justice for women and children of Jammu and Kashmir.
Madhavi, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Generally, the bureaucracy underestimate the women's issues. Particularly as you've seen in rural areas, the women leaders of grassroots politics, the bureaucracy never cares for them. They always look for their husbands. How come the bureaucracy is helping the women
Exactly.
in Jammu and Kashmir?
I will tell you, ma'am. As I said, I have followed your footsteps. In 2011, I had joined the ministry and I had just completed my, almost 9 to 10 years in the ministry. And I must say that being in the ministry, and I'm an academician turned a person who has gone into policy making. And very clearly, we created a scheme for women, especially in terms of access to justice at the district level. Now we know that in India there are 3 levels. One is the central level, then is the state level, which is the federal level, and then is the district level, which is much below the state, where rural women have got more access, okay, to the bureaucracy, in general. But when we had opened the scheme, the one-stop center scheme, it has become such a success. Ma'am, my bio note was not read. In fact, in every district, there are 733 sub-districts. At every 733 district, we have a unit, we have a building, it's like a house, where the women who want to get rescued from domestic violence can go there 24/7. They get 5 services: police help, medical help, legal help, psychological help, and temporary shelter. And these centers are under the jurisdiction of the district collector, which is the bureaucracy. And the funding goes directly to the district collector to run these centers. So 733 centers in the country. That means there are 733 access points for women who want to address domestic violence at the district level. That means which is more closer to the grassroots level, where more than 80% of the population has access. So when all of these centers have been operational, especially in the past 5 years, and especially in Jammu and Kashmir in the last few months, where I personally had gone to ensure that they are operational. Believe us, ma'am, within half an hour of operationalizing the center, we were getting domestic violence cases in front of us only. So you can understand that access from bureaucracy was because of that mission mode approach in the past 5 years to make sure that all 733 districts are operational, became also with one very important order of the Honorable Supreme Court, that every district in the country should have one-stop center scheme for women affected with violence. This was in 2018. The Honorable Supreme Court gave this order because of the data which was coming in. And I personally was looking at the data. We had created online systems. Almost 5.4 million women have got access to justice. I'm talking about the past 3-4 year data. 5.4 million women, which is on record. So bureaucracy is working.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Have you sent your abstract?
Yes, ma'am, I have. I'll resend it again.
Resend it to me,
Okay,
or to Diah also.
I have one question, Madhavi. I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I want to know, prior to the abrogation of the Article 370, did the state take any steps to contain domestic violence against women?
Good.
Yes, ma'am. In every district, we have district protection officers.
No, before abrogation.
Yes, yes.
She's asking about before abrogation.
Yeah. Before abrogation also, we had, but they could not effectively enforce. I'm talking here about the enforcement. The only difference before and after 370 was the enforcement. So women could access, but they were coming to the police station more. If they had domestic violence, they would run to the police station. That my husband is beating me, I'm getting beaten up, I'm not getting mental peace in my house. So they would run to the police station. In fact, I was in the police station where we were having a talk with the officers, and we had women coming in and saying that my, I own a little shop, and my husband was beating me, so I'm not able to get that shop where I can earn my livelihood. So I need that. I have put a court case also. So she was saying all this at the police station. So this is how it went, ma'am. But we must understand that it is not a criminal law. It's also a civil law, that we do have domestic incident reports. But after 370, now the DPOs are full much in force.
That means the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly had accepted that legislation.
Yeah, after 370 years.
Can I ask a question, Bidyut?
Yeah, please do so.
I have put it in the chat box. Wherever in South Asia, it's not only in Jammu and Kashmir, but everywhere in South Asia, despite all the laws that we have, patriarchy is still ruling. You might have a lot of education, girls get educated, but then when you look at the work, what happens? We have women working at home, they work in the fields, they still that is something that is not even accounted for. Our economic structures don't count women's work. So, how many, whatever 370 stays or goes, the impact of patriarchy on women, can it go away that easily with 370 removal?
Ma'am, I would like to answer that patriarchy is an issue which is very much deep-rooted. It is something which will not go overnight. It will at least take a century for it to go, just like racialism. But the only way we can address is continuous efforts. It cannot be abolished overnight. It will get abolished gradually, with time, progressively. But our effort, wherever we are, whether we are in the government, whether we are in the civil society, whether we are in the academics, all of us have a major role to continuously, like these seminars, these kind of online virtual seminars, even during COVID or even otherwise. We should be in that continuous dialogue. And this is the way we are going to get out of it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not a couple of years, but definitely in that direction.
Agreed. It'll take time, but laws, structures, political structures, India became independent, but still, patriarchy is still there after that many years. And these are not easy things to go away, but the efforts, of course, we need to continue. And I think you are right in that efforts are being made. And let us cross our fingers that it works.
I don't know how long it will take. Anyway, any other question to anybody?
I'm sorry, I have a, sorry, ma'am, I'm Usha here. I have a question to Madhavi. Actually, it's not, I'm just wondering, it's just whether you have any mechanism where you're going to do any case study or survey to see whether what you are claiming, the conclusions, actually you are making very large conclusions, and I'm really disturbed by it, whether we can conclude that, as a researcher, I think I'm disturbed. Because is it so easy, because talking about an entire state, that an article has helped the state to put up the mechanism, definitely you can say that, to put up this mechanism which was not there before. So that's very important. But concluding that it has helped women and it has really on ground, what is the situation? So I'm really curious to know whether if you have followed any case study, or you will be doing any kind of survey, or I think that will be very helpful to make your conclusions very conclusive.
Right. I'm speaking with data, evidence-based research. We have developed 2 online dashboards. One is called Nirbhaya dashboard and the other is Sakhi dashboard. It has been set up in mission mode by the government of India. And we were getting data from all these 733 centers, which was very detailed. The details of the women who was affected with violence, the type of violence, the place of violence, and the details of the perpetrator. So these 4 details we were accessing in real time, morning, evening, night, because the centers are open 24/7. And across 5 years, when I talk about the data, I'm talking about women helpline and one-stop center data. Women helpline is 181 number, where a woman can call and say that, okay, I need help. So the 181 will direct a woman to the one-stop center, whether through vehicle or whichever support. So I'm talking about the database. I'm talking about this is available. You can ask it from whichever state government you want to. It is also a parliament question which was answered with the data state-wise. We have numbers.
I'm only talking about Jammu and Kashmir. Before the abolition of the article and after, that kind of research. That's what I'm only talking about. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Before abrogation of Article 370, we did have one-stop centers in few districts, not in all the districts. So you can take up that data and you can compare, and you can get your analysis done. It is available. It is readily available to the district collectors.
Madhavi,
yes,
you're forgetting the data can be cooked up. Who are the agency? You keep that in mind. As a researcher, you should keep that in mind, that it can be cooked up.
No.
There are 2 types of
Who are your
data.
respondent?
The respondents are directly women affected with violence who access the one-stop centers. This is the data from the woman who's affected with violence. It's not a primary or second. It's not that somebody is going out. It is a woman coming to the center.
Takes place everywhere.
Yes, ma'am. So women are reporting.
We agree.
They are reporting. This is reported data of domestic violence.
See, it is self-reporting. Right?
By the women affected with
by the women
violence.
also. But no. See, you must realize data has a problem. So that you keep in mind. You are still. Don't. You try to understand. Talk to Seema. Okay. So always the statistics doesn't reveal the true story. Suppose she wants to take some revenge. Suppose she may report that, or she wants a divorce, doesn't get it. So she will tell that he is harassing me. That case is also there. All sorts of things.
I would like to interject here. We also have psychosocial counseling at one-stop center.
Exactly.
I would like to say what happens, because I have myself been on the field, and I have traveled India 3 times in terms of going to the field in all parts of the country. What happens is, I'm talking about right from my experience, when a woman accesses one-stop center, she is definitely psychologically disturbed. She would come and say, okay, in the beginning, she would say that, okay, I would just want a police intervention. Okay. And then we would counsel her that, okay, if you take the police intervention, these are the steps. These are the legal counseling also is done. And psychological counseling is also done. After some time, she says, okay, I will not like to kind of get into FIR now. I'll come back again. So So she would go back and again she would, think back. And sometimes it so happens that she needs a lot of counseling also at the same time. So it is actually what the woman wants. So we give her counseling, psychological also, and we give her legal counseling also. So it is not that, the data is fluctuating, but it is what exactly the woman wants. Here it is about the women empowerment. It is about what she wants. Sometimes she wants amicable settlement, and sometimes it really works because when we have a deterrence with the district collector, ma'am, I'll tell you, district collector is a very powerful entity at the district level. When we have an office which is set up under the district level, and when the perpetrator knows that if he is committing violence, he cannot escape from the government. He has police people watching him, he has counselors watching him, he has got the district collector, and he has been given a warning that listen, under these laws, he can be penalized. So kindly be. We also counsel the perpetrator also. So that has created a lot of societal change. So when we talk about data, it is a real-time data, which is progressive data, which is not only showing empowerment of women, but also the change of mindset happening at both levels. Because we have the full team over there. The perpetrator gets a message that he cannot run away after impacting a woman with violence. So a counseling happens at all levels. So there has been a societal change. So this is a very interesting find, and I'm documenting it for everybody so that they would get to know in what way a mindset change has happened to the perpetrators also.
Just Madhavi, just 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what? Economically dependence. Women are economically dependent. So even if they are harassed, subjected to domestic violence, they can't leave because otherwise they will be helpless. Who is going to support them? Exactly. You will not be there all the time.
No, ma'am. We have got an answer for this also, because when we have addressed domestic violence, we've done it very innovatively. We have a Mahila Shakti Kendra scheme. It is a kind of a cadre of women who are up to the block level, who are disseminating government schemes and programs for women. So they go door to door, and suppose a woman comes to one-stop center and she has the same concern which you have, saying that I'm getting beaten up, I don't have a job, I don't have money. So where will I go? I'm staying in the same house. So we say, hello, these are the schemes. If we assess her, we map her education level, and we give her all the schemes, we empower her also. So one-stop center is also an empowerment center. If a woman comes in, with a query that, okay, where will she go when her husband is beating, then we empower her right there and then itself on the table. So she becomes empowered and gets over her vulnerability, minimum kind of assistance, which is out of risk. So this is a very good innovation at the grassroots.
Just one advice.
Yes, ma'am.
You read the civil society reports on Jammu and Kashmir before you conclude. Of course, you are in government, but still you try to read what others are telling. Why all these participants are raising questions, because it is a conflict-ridden area. A lot of things are happening we don't know. Okay, now
I would suggest,
that's all right.
But
do read other reports and come to your conclusion, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm talking about the recent reports here. After 370, not much work has been done in terms of knowing the status of empowerment of women. So updated reports I would really look forward to see. And I would request that if somebody could, if we all can visit there, it's a very beautiful place. And I don't think so the kind of people have got that fear psychology over there of conflict. It's just cosmetic, because conflict is everywhere. In fact, there are some areas which are more conflict-ridden than Jammu Kashmir. So this is something which is just a mindset issue. And I've been there. So I've traveled 2,000 kilometers, and roads are being constructed. So right now the situation is not what people used to think, that misnomer is not there anymore.
Okay, thank you.
I just have, sorry, ma'am, I just have one point to raise, that, as you are in the policy making, and perhaps you take it for granted that you have to protect the policies or the measures taken, the mechanisms that are in place. So in a way, it's a good thing that you're telling us that there are mechanisms which were not there before. But I think if you've gone there from a researcher, from being a researcher to from an academician to a policymaker, I feel that, one should not forget how it was to be a researcher, because drawing conclusions are based on just based on data, as ma'am had pointed out, because data does not tell you the entire story. The data has there are two kinds of data. One is the government data and one is the on-ground, on-site data. So I would really be extremely interested to know what is happening. And as you said, it's not such a conflict-ridden state. Then perhaps why not conduct a survey and actually conclude? If you are concluding, you are making tall conclusions, then we should also know that, okay, the conclusions are based on not just one-sided government data. Thank you.
I think she will do it. Seema and
Ma'am, we are working on getting the data in terms of research-based data. So we have started out, already putting up documents to the state government in terms of taking out surveys, not only in assessing the women empowerment status, but
not
their
you,
other health.
not
No,
government.
not government. I'm talking about, we have opened up the research areas for the women empowerment for all other institutions apart from government. We're encouraging that to come up, and we will look into that data once we get that.
And good things are happening.
Yes, ma'am.
In Jammu and Kashmir.
In fact, ma'am, one very interesting takeaway which we got was to conduct the training and capacity building of all the functionaries of the country in Jammu and Kashmir from the rest of the India, so that women from Jammu and Kashmir can see the rest of India. Tourism will increase, and they can also meet, people from different cultures. I'm talking about officers who are, addressing violence. So we are working on that. So that is something which is on the agenda for this year.
So let us, if you have, Diah.
Yes.
If you have any other, if somebody wants to give, of course, it's all India specific.
Okay.
If you have any question, or are you sleeping?
No, I'm awake. I'm okay. It's just that, what you have discussed is actually happens in Indonesia, that, there are always two sides of the story, because I think Professor
Asha Hans
Tripathy mentioned about the, the agency of women, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mostly in Indonesian, we call it the city slums. There are many activities that women done in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's kind of the resilience, coming from the people of women from the grassroots level. And this is very interesting because usually in Indonesia we have movement that start from the top to bottom, but this one is bottom up. So I think in a way that women are very active also in respond to this pandemic, and many of them show the resilience. And now even the government issued some sort of local lockdown, but based on the district rather than based on the city. So I guess for me, it shows that yes, there are still many issues in terms of gender oppression based on gender marginalization. Patriarchy is still very strong. Maybe I don't know when it's gonna stop, but on one hand, there are women who are not simply victims, in a sense that it live up the spirit that their resilience, they are showing their agencies. And I see this in these presentations on India. I think it's very insightful. It's really interesting for me.
and same thing was revealed in
Can I-
Asha Hans's paper.
Hello?
Can I add something to what she was saying, what Diah was saying about Swarna's paper? What we saw during COVID was also that the first responders were mostly women, at least in India. It was the it was the workers on the field, the health workers, all those women. It was they who responded, not afraid of their lives, whether COVID was there or no. They were out there in the field. And it was not only the panchayat system, the local worker, the local political system which responded, but it was these huge amount of workers. And I think this is where agency comes in.
Right. And also self-help group members, ASA worker and Anganwadi workers. They become frontline warriors.
Ma'am, to add to it, we have around 8,000 people on the ground with one-stop centers. If we take 10 per district also, around 733, it's almost like 7,330 people on the ground. And all of them were functional during the COVID time. So
COVID
it
is
was
there in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah. So they were functional during COVID time, right from March on when the lockdown was imposed in India.
The government functionaries.
Yes, the one-stop center functionaries.
They were.
Yeah, the staff, that is, we have 10 staff per center in that one-stop center, and all of them were working. So when we talk about the frontline functionaries, ma'am, I agree with Asha ma'am also, and Swarnamayee Tripathy ma'am also. It was the women who gave that frontline support, not only in terms of addressing the COVID issues, in terms of their services, but also a lot of psychological support was also given to them.
Now, we are going to conclude unless anybody else has any remarks, comments, except Madhavi. I mean, let us not argue further. Let us take up any other issue. If you have any question on ASA, that's an interesting paper. Diah.
It wasn't that interesting today.
Anybody has any comments or remarks? Climate change is a big thing now, and how women-headed households have been impacted. Also. So, Diah, do you have any comment or remark?
Just one very short one. And I think the same thing here happened especially in my neighborhood. Not only in my neighborhood but in most places in Indonesia, that woman involvement, because most of carers are done by women, right? Carried out by women. And then during this pandemic, especially female care workers in hospital, nurses especially, they are prone to not only stress in terms of emotional stress, but also I don't know, we call it uncomfortableness, because when you are a health carer and you're in hospital, when you are using hazmat, so it's challenges is more on women rather than men, because you can't really take off your hazmat and then change quickly, especially when women have their menstruation and everything. So I think this is something that we also need to think about. I mean, there are many women who put their life in the front lines in terms of pandemic. Unfortunately, this has not been taken into account, in a sense that we take for granted, the gender difference in terms of health carers, right? Because I think the challenge is different, completely different between male and female health carers. I think that's all from me, Bidyut.
Yeah.
Also, the cost, the salaries that they were getting was so pitiful that, when we are university professors or something and we get so much salary, and these people getting 1/100 of what we earn are there fighting the COVID. That is something also which we have to take into account, that they're not being paid well. But despite that, they were out there in the front lines.
So
sometimes they are not paid at all if they work, in the neighborhood, because most carers are now women rather than men.
So, anybody else? Any question, remarks, comments, or we can conclude? We have to come back at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
It's now
Yeah.
7:46.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Thank
in
you.
nutshell, I would just give one or two sentences. In nutshell, women have hidden agency, as I have, pointing out. And when the situation comes and they're challenged to face the situation, then the hidden agency is revealed. And in spite of all the obstacles, they march forward, risking their own lives and security.
Yeah.
So this is what I would sum up. In all the sessions, it is revealed that women have agency, and the entire society should recognize this hidden hidden agency. Otherwise, we cannot fight the COVID. In fact, as that Sarpanch said, or the district panchayat president said, that we have to defeat the COVID war. And how? Not only wearing masks, but also it is the way of life, not antagonizing the nature. That is more important. If the nature is imbalanced, then you'll get COVID-like situation. Now there's a new virus has come up in Europe, in England. So it will keep on coming. Earlier also it had come, during plague, 19th century plague. Plague came from Hong Kong to Bombay. Anyway, that's long story. But I would say nature, make peace with nature. Then the humankind will survive. Otherwise, climate change will take place. And, Uttarakhand glacier would gush out and wash away many villagers. Thank you. And we'll meet again at 8 o'clock, Indian time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful presentations. We'll see you again in around 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. I'll see you again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.